and thank you so much for joining me today as we continue talking about the joy revolution. The next few weeks, we're going to be looking at James chapter 1, verses 2 through 4, that says this: "Count it all joy when you face various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience, and let patience complete its perfect work, making you perfect and complete, lacking nothing." Now, as we go through these verses, we're actually going to start at the end and work our way back to the beginning, because the end gives some pretty amazing outcomes. It says this: it says that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. Now, right away, when some of us hear that word perfect, it's a little intimidating. Most of us hear that word perfect and feel really disqualified, but we shouldn't, because that word perfect literally just means to be mature. You know, as parents, we all want our kids to grow up, don't we? We want them to mature, we want them to become settled, and that's what God wants. That's what God wants for all of us. I believe that one of the primary focuses and objectives of God's love that's at work in our lives is to bring us to places of maturity. And as He lovingly leads us through the process of growth and the process of maturity, it's a pretty awesome thing. So we don't have to pull back from that concept there of being perfect, because we understand that it's really just saying to grow up, to be mature, to be settled. The second word is complete. That word complete means to be whole or full. It means nothing missing, nothing broken. And then the last concept says having a life that lacks nothing. It's pretty amazing understanding there. I mean, think about it. A life that where nothing's lacking, a life that's whole, a life that's full, a life that's mature and that's growing. Man, I don't know anybody who wouldn't sign up for a life like that. It's pretty awesome outcomes. But how do we get there? How do we get to that place? Well, if we go a little further in those verses, a little further back in those verses, it says by allowing patience to complete its work in our lives. Now, many times when we think of patience, at least in my mind, my initial thought is just sitting around twiddling your thumbs waiting on something to happen. Many times we view patience as just a passive resignation to what's going on. But that's not what patience is at all. Patience is a steadfast focus. Patience is this force in our lives that it helps us to bravely endure what's going on. Patience says this: I may be going through a tough time, but it's not going to last forever. Patience says what doesn't kill me is going to make me better. Patience says, you know what, just a little while longer and I'm going to reap the benefits. Patience is a powerful, powerful force in our lives. But how does that happen? How does patience do its work in our lives? Well, if we go all the way back to verse 2, we learn that it starts when you and I choose joy when we're going through tough places. If we will choose joy when things get tough, then God's supernatural joy will produce empowered patience in our lives that then helps bring our lives to a new place of growth, to new places of maturity. It brings us to a place where what was lacking in our lives isn't lacking anymore, because we've grown. We're becoming bigger people. And that's such an awesome, awesome thing. So from today's talk, there's a couple of things we need to remember. The first is this, is that God really wants to build big people, that He is interested in growing us up so that we're big people, we're mature, we're whole, we're complete. We got to realize there's some outcomes, there's some goals and desires of God's love at work in our lives. And He does that because He wants to demonstrate His greatness through our lives. The second thing we have to remember is this process. And that process starts with joy, choosing joy in the tough places. And then that joy empowers patience that then helps us grow in these other areas of our lives. You know, and that's hard for us at times, isn't it? Because I don't know about you, but I know in my life, when things get tough, I tend to just focus on the immediate. I focus on what's right in front of me. And it's so easy to take our eyes off the big picture, and it's so easy to forget about the potential outcomes and the God opportunities. But we have to be reminded, and hopefully this is what's happening today, is the next time we face a challenge or a difficulty is that we'll look for the God opportunities. That we'll look for the opportunities that God wants to redeem the challenges that we face to use as a force for growth in our lives. But that only happens when you and I choose joy in the middle of our difficulty. My prayer for you this week is no matter what you face and no matter what you go through, is that you'll focus on the outcomes, the God possibilities, and that you'll choose joy as you walk through it. Thank you so much for joining me. Can't wait to be with you next week. Thanks.